This is Saturday Morning Mysteries.
And we're your hosts, Alexis and Grace. Today, we actually join the gang on a quick weekend getaway.
Ooh.
They're traveling again. This time they're in Seattle, Washington, actually.
Okay, hey, my neck of the woods.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, hey, I got
my part of the country.
Visit anyway. One day I'm going to visit Grace out there, and then maybe we'll take a quick trip up to Seattle while I'm there.
To
we'll
find
see.
Some demons. It sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. And perhaps we may, as this episode tells us exactly where they're hiding in the city of Seattle.
Cool.
So while the teens are on this weekend getaway, they, as per usual, are reading newspapers, and they come across reports of demon hauntings on a nearby construction site.
Site?
Taking us back into the wild and dangerous world of construction. Yikes. I cannot avoid it.
Yep.
And so the gang, just as I cannot avoid these construction-related episodes, they cannot avoid sticking their nose into other people's business. And they decide to insert themselves in a new city, all this. Yeah, just jumping right into other people's problems.
Yeah.
They decide to insert themselves literally into this local folklore of some underground demons, and they launch a full-scale investigation to bring an end to these mysterious hauntings.
Okay.
But before we dive into their investigation, I have to discuss a little bit of the Seattle history that the writers tied into this episode and into this mystery. So yes, another example of the writers bringing in like actual real world background information into the plot always makes the episodes a little bit more exciting, if you ask me.
For sure.
So we are in Seattle. And I'm going to take it way back here, which initially was settled settled in 1851. And it quickly became a booming lumber and shipping town. There was a lot of wood, a lot of trees, a lot of availability of lumber, and they were close to the water. So naturally, a lot of people moved in, a lot of people had jobs. They had a lot of materials that could keep the economy floating. Many buildings and homes and shops and whatnot in the area were thus built with lumber because it was everywhere.
Okay.
But because they were so close to the water, a lot of buildings were also originally built on like elevated wooden platforms or on stilts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently, way back when, in the mid 1800s, late 1800s. And this would, protect them from flooding and high tides and sewage and drainage problems that were results of those things. But it was not cool for so long. Unfortunately, one afternoon in June of 1889, so almost 40 years after the area was settled, there was an unusually dry summer. And actually fires were popping up in big cities all throughout the state of Washington. And one just so happened to hit Seattle.
In the city of wood.
In a city of wood. And the fire started, unfortunately, in a carpentry shop.
Oh, no.
Lots of timber in there.
The headquarters of the wood.
Exactly. The wooden headquarters. Yes. And so before the all-volunteer fire department could get to the scene to put out this fire, yes, an all-volunteer at that time, so not quite equipped to fight this kind of fire. By the time they got there...
tangent this piece of history. In some places, in like the olden days, in the, I think, 1800s, there would be it was like all volunteer firefighters, and it was like a straight up first come, first serve. And then some fires wouldn't get put out because two groups would show up at the same time and they would want to be the ones to put it out, and they would straight up fight each other, and the person whose house is burning down would be like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. Hello.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Well, yeah. In this case, they were all dedicated. Every firefighter was there trying to put this thing out because unfortunately, by the time that they got to the carpentry shop, that fire had already reached a liquor store across the street. Fuel into saloons, which we know are bars, essentially, in old Western days. So this thing, obviously, a lot of flammability. Unfortunately, this fire, it just got even more out of control because, again, remember, a lot of these buildings are made of wood, are on wooden platforms, or are on wooden stilts. So in total, This actually, I believe to this day, it is still the most destructive fire that ever hit the city of Seattle.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it destroyed 25 blocks of the city. Whoa. Cost over $500 million of destruction. If in like when you adjust for inflation, when you adjust for inflation. Okay. Oh my God, yeah, no, because now that would be like trillions of dollars.
Yeah, that's why I had to ask.
Yeah,
but
no.
Still,
so
that's a lot.
It was like a couple or like 10 billion or 10 million back then, which is now like 20 or $500 million. Sorry,
that's wild.
Like a little over 500 million today. Yeah. Wait. Yeah, $500 million today. It's $500 million adjusted for inflation today is the damage. A lot of damage. 25 city blocks, the entire business district, 4 of their wharves, their railroad terminal. The whole city was just absolutely destroyed. But rather than packing up their bags and resettling elsewhere after the fire, the city decided that they're just going to rebuild and start fresh.
Okay.
Which, interestingly, from my research on this history, this is kind of like the rebuild would actually kind of set the framework for Seattle becoming just like a historically progressive city.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not going to like go into all of the details, maybe bonus content one day, because it is super interesting. If you have time to read about it, give it a quick look, because turns out that when you have to like rebuild something entirely from scratch, like you're thinking ahead of other problems to fix, and Seattle just from there, like
they were like, here's our huge list of problems that we were trying to figure out how to fix.
Now's our chance to do it. Exactly. Cool. Right.
Great. Let's burn it all down.
Burn it all down and start over. But they kind of, they started over in a way. But what they decided to do was actually regrade certain areas of the city.
Okay.
So they literally raised the ground level, like anywhere from like 10 to 30 feet, depending on like, you know, the elevation of that city. Because as I said before, it was close to the water and they already had flooding issues. So they're like, oh, well, if we rise above sea level, then that'll help with that a little bit.
Cool.
And in addition, it helps because we have all this fire damage everywhere. Like we need to build over it. So they essentially just brought a bunch of dirt in and they walled off the areas between the old, like soon to be underground buildings. And when they did that, it created like this underground channel of passageways and like old basements. Yeah, that is now today known as the underground city of Seattle. So Seattle actually has this whole underground infrastructure underneath it. You can take tours down there.
What?
Yeah. Never knew this. Yeah. Found out from Scooby-Doo.
Shit.
Yeah. And I watched a couple videos of the tours too when I was writing this, because I was like, I need to see if this looks like how they're portraying it in the show.
I'll put it's really interesting. Some pictures on Instagram of well, I'm going to look into it now.
It's very, very cool. Like it looks like, so you can see like the front of some buildings because, the way they had to do it, and I'm going to get through this quickly. I'm like dragging on about Seattle history, but it is important to this episode.
Okay.
So they had to phase in the regrading of the city, because you can't just bring all this dirt in at once and like boom overnight, or like at the same time the whole city is risen like 10 to 30. Exactly. So there would be times where like you have a big city block and one half of the block would be like 20 feet above the other block, but all the shops,
ladder.
The shops, exactly. That's what they did, because the shops on both sides would have to be operating, because like you don't want to have to shut down your business for years when you're trying to rebuild. So they literally would put long ass ladders going down these big ass drops so that people could get up and down into the shops. And a lot of people either missed the ladders.
Oh no.
Or just didn't see the drop-offs, and like 17 people died during the process of them regrading.
Just from that.
And the coroner labeled it as involuntary suicide. Like, how terrible is that? That's not a thing. It's not. It is when you don't want the city to be held liable, I guess, for their blatant mistakes.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So naturally, with this number of people that died, unfortunately, in this regradation process, there are rumors and a lot of folklore in Seattle now about that underground area being haunted.
Cool.
And that is a little bit of Seattle history that brings us to today's episode of Scooby-Doo, and it tells us where our mystery begins. Thanks for tuning in to Saturday Morning Mysteries.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share, rate, review, leave us a like, and drop a comment. We post episodes every Saturday and bonus tune tangents whenever we feel like it. So please subscribe so you don't miss the shenanigans.
And if you want to follow us on YouTube, click the bell under the YouTube subscribe button to receive notifications when new videos are posted.
And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, we have no idea what you're listening to us on, so just hit the big subscribe button on whatever app you're using. We believe in you.
Give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at SatmornMist, all the abreves, and let us know if you have any episode or show requests by emailing SaturdayMorningMysteries@gmail.com.
Thanks to Jenna Kendall for the logo design and to Ava Sakiki for the music used during this week's episode.
See y'all groovy kids next week on Saturday Morning Mysteries.